It's time for Kids Moment with Hannah. Hey, you guys. So glad you tuned in for another week of our online service at BCC. Well, now's the point in our service where I get to talk to you kids that are watching and tell you what comes next in God's big story. But before we get started, quick question for you. Have you ever been too little for something? Like you are at a carnival and you're too small to ride the ride. Or you're at your house but you're too young to stay home by yourself. Or maybe there's a movie on TV but you're too young to watch it. Or maybe you're simply too young to sit at the grown-up table at Thanksgiving. Maybe you're even too young to drive a car. Today we're going to learn about something you are not too young for, nor for all those adults in the room you're not too old for. This message is for all of us. When Jesus came out of the tomb, Jesus changed everything. It was like he turned the world upside down. He changed the way that people thought about God. And that's not all. Jesus also changed the way that we thought about everyone else. The Apostle Paul wrote about this in a letter that he wrote to a church in a city called Philippi.
Don't do anything only to get ahead. Don't do it because you're proud. Instead, be humble. Value others more than yourselves. As you deal with one another, you should think and act as Jesus did. In his very nature, he was God. Jesus was equal with God, but Jesus didn't take advantage of that fact. Instead, he made himself nothing. He did this by taking on the nature of a servant. He was made just like human beings. He appeared as a man. He was humble and obeyed God completely. He did this even though it led to his death. Even worse, he died on a cross.
Did you catch that? Jesus was equal with God. He made his big, huge, massive self to be kind of small like us. He thought of our needs and weaknesses, and he thought of us first. When we put others first like Jesus did, we're not only following his example, but we are also showing the world what God is like. We are, in a way, reflecting his image. Here's the thing. It's easy for us to say we put others first, but in reality, how often do we do that? You might be surprised how many times during your day you have opportunity to put someone else first.
Wow, this restaurant is amazing.
Yeah, right? I get it.
The food smells so good.
I know. My parents own it, and it's kind of like our family business.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. That's so cool.
Yeah, my parents, they make a ton of money here.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think we could order?
And I get basically whatever I want.
Did you see my new phone actually?
Yeah, my parents said I couldn't get a new phone. I had another phone, but as soon as the new one came out, my parents bought it for me. Plus, we have a huge flat screen TV in our living room, and I get to stay up as late as I want to watch YouTube until my eyes go square.
Awesome. Hey, maybe we could just order some food?
Now, maybe you haven't had this exact conversation, but I bet you know someone who brags. If you know someone like this, you may have been part of what I call the one-up challenge, which is when you're trying to do better than someone else. It's kind of like bragging, but with more exaggeration. Maybe instead of bragging, my friend over here could just enjoy the restaurant with her friend. It's kind of like what Paul wrote in his letter. You see, Jesus didn't take advantage of the fact that he's God's son. He came to serve others rather than brag about it. Remember, Paul said it this way.
In his very nature, he was God. Jesus was equal with God, but Jesus didn't take advantage of that fact. Instead, he made himself nothing. He did this by taking on the nature of a servant. He was made just like human beings.
Okay, I have one last scenario for you. Let's see if you relate to this one. Hey, do you want to play a game?
Oh, hey, yeah, totally.
Sweet.
Hey, I was going to pick the game.
Super Smash Bros.
Woohoo! Okay, but let me pick.
hero.
Oh, that is who I was going to pick. That is not even that character's move. What are you doing?
PK fire! PK fire!
Please stop it. Stop it now, or I'm gonna throw you on the roof.
Mom! She said she would throw me on the roof!
Will you just let me pick now?
PK fire! PK fire!
That is
PK
not
fire!
what I wanted. You know that. This switch is mine. These controllers are mine. And you know what? I'm gonna take them back to my room and you can just sit here and do nothing. How do you like that?
Wow. Does any of that sound a little familiar? If you have siblings, you can probably relate. Sometimes it's our family members that know how to push our buttons the most. We get frustrated sometimes, and that's normal. But it's not okay to be selfish or to completely lose your temper because you didn't get what you wanted. I know this is really tough when it comes to family, especially when your brother or sister is really pushing your buttons. But I know how you can start to try to be humble and be patient even in those situations. It's kind of like what Paul wrote.
Don't do anything only to get ahead. Don't do it because you're proud. Instead, be humble. Value others more than yourselves. As you deal with one another, you should think and act as Jesus did.
There's a question that when I was a kid, people used to ask a lot. And it went like this: WWJD. What does that mean? Well, it means, what would Jesus do? And it's kind of a worthy phrase to bring back. What would Jesus have done in those situations? In a moment when you feel really frustrated and anger is starting to boil up, it can be really hard to slow down and ask that question. But it's really important to press pause, freeze in that moment, to quiet the voices in your head and just ask, what would Jesus do? How does he want me to respond right now? And then take a deep breath and then do just that. And we know Jesus would choose humility because that's what he already did for you and I. Now in our normal everyday lives with people we see every day, or maybe strangers that we don't know so well, we can choose to put others first, just like Jesus did. In light of that, remember this: put others first because Jesus put you first. Just as Jesus was sent into the world to live, to love, to show compassion, and in this way reveal God's character, now he sends us, his image bearers, his church, to show the world how to live selfless, humble lives. And in that way, we reveal who God is to those who need to know him. The final example I want to share with you today ties us back to what we talked about at the beginning, about asking that question, am I too young for this? No way. You see, when you love others, it's kind of like dropping a rock in a pond. You know when you drop a rock in the pond and all of a sudden a small ripple and then a bigger ripple and then a bigger ripple until it affects the whole pond? Well, kids, this is what happens when you act selflessly. You can dramatically affect the adults around you, the bigger ripples. When they see a child acting selflessly, kindly, they dramatically change the way they live too. And they see Jesus through your eyes. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video yet again. I miss you all and cannot wait to see you next. Bye!